What is going on, YouTube-verse? John Stanek from Johnny Radio here, bringing you another Top 5 on this glorious Top 5 Friday. And guys, I'm so excited. We're getting through the 2000s. We've made it to 2007, so we're talking about my Top 5 favorite albums of that year. Personal favorites, of course. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it. At number 5... Into the Wild, the soundtrack by Eddie Vedder. Man, this album was not a huge shock, but for Eddie to do this solo thing and hit it out of the park in such a big way, it's just a beautiful thing because, Pearl Jam, ever since the 2000s, sometimes their albums can be a little bit hit or miss. But Vedder, man, he really tuned in to the whole vibe of this picture that was directed, of course, by Sean Penn. And, the movie itself isn't what I would call a great thing that I revisit often, but the soundtrack, man, it is glorious. It is beautiful. It is stripped down. Songs like Guaranteed, which really show off Eddie Vedder's guitar playing, his finger picking style, which he is so good at these days, which also he took a cue of on the next Pearl Jam album after this with the song Just Breathe, which I think is one of their best songs of this millennium, but also songs like Society, where, oh man, the lyrics get so deep and really you feel the kind of the message that this film was going for, and the loneliness and the solitude that this character was feeling. And it's Vedder at some of his absolute best with or without Pearl Jam, and that's just my number 5. So now at number 4, The Alchemy Index, Volumes 1 and 2 by Thrice. Of course, Volumes 3 and 4 would come the following year. Man, what an amazing concept record this is by Thrice. And to be honest, this, to me, like Thrice just kept getting better and better after this record. But I mean, Fire and Water, out of the four elements, these two are the strongest out of this whole series. Songs like Fire Breather, just amazing, some hard-hitting rock on the Fire album, but man, the Water album especially, songs like Digital Sea are just brilliantly concocted. Of course, lyrically, it is so deep. Musically, there's nothing quite like it, especially at this point in their career where they came from more of a post-punk scene and they were moving more to just a straight-ahead rock scene. But in the middle, they're doing this like conceptual, just amazing, almost like Pink Floyd-esque stuff, and it's beautiful. And if you haven't heard of it, please do yourself a favor and check it out, because Dustin Kensrue and the gang just really hit this one out of the park, and that's just my number 4. So now at number 3, Because of the Times by Kings of Leon. You knew this was going to be on my list. Big Kings of Leon fan. And man, they were just on a roll at this point. After Aha Shake Heartbreak, which one of my favorite albums of that whole decade. And then, of course, coming in between, Only by the Night. But man, this is so solid from start to finish. Knocked Up, just one of the coolest opening tracks from any of their records. And they really went for it, man. 7+ minutes of this track that's like telling this brooding story about a couple, on the run, doing their own thing. And then just so many twists and turns on this album. Songs like My Party, which is literally just such a song that you can party to and rock out to, put your teeth out to, like, dance and groove along. Amazing. Just all of them at the top of their game. And really, this is where Caleb Followill as a singer started getting to a point where you could see them being the next kind of anthem rock band, where you could understand more of the lyrics, first of all, not as unintelligible, but also still having that fire in their belly. Songs like, On Call, such a big hit at the time. The closing track, Arizona, possibly my favorite Kings of Leon song. It is. I've done my top 5 on that already. But yeah, just a beautiful ballad with just an ode to like 80s rock with sort of a little bit of those synthesizers in the background with Matthew doing this soaring guitar solo over it. It's just brilliant. And that, guys, is just my number 3. So now at number 2, Cease to Begin by Band of Horses. Yes. Oh my God. I love this album so much. Anytime I put it on, it just takes me back to this time in the late 2000s. It's got this really lush sound throughout the whole album, whether they're doing ballads like No One's Gonna Love You or Detlef Schrempf, which was one of my top 5 songs of that year, or the rockers throughout the album, or just like these mid-tempo burners that they do. Ben Bridwell has this very distinctive voice that cuts through. It's very high-pitched, but in a way that's like very soulful, and I think that's my favorite part of this album. You can't really pigeonhole it as rock or it's got soul, it's got passion, and there's just so much behind the lyrics. You feel like there's so much heart on their sleeve going into all these songs. Even when you get to the closing track, Window Blues, which sounds like a bunch of nonsense lyrically, you can tell it's much more than that. And that comes through in every one of the songs on this album. Just from the opening track to the closing, it's a concise, 40 to 45 minute album. It's nearly perfect in that way. And that's only my number 2. So now at number 1, In Rainbows by Radiohead, of course. I mean, how can this not be your number 1? I mean, of course, you know that I love Radiohead so much. I mean, OK Computer, one of my favorite albums of all time. In Rainbows, right up there in my top 3 Radiohead albums, and that's really saying something because there is not a weak track on this whole record. I mean, just Reckoner alone, which of course was one of my top 5 songs of the year. All I Need, which is just, this is the album, and I've said this before on my channel when I reviewed this album, you can check it out. This is when Radiohead became sexy and added that element to their whole sound, and it really took them in all these different directions, like Weird Fishes, one of the greatest songs of that decade. I mean, every single song on here takes you to a different place. House of Cards also has that Tom York crooning falsetto that really just, lyrically, it's about some really, key parties from the 70s and stuff. But, the album, it gets really dark in places like you would want a Radiohead album to go, but it's also something you can groove to throughout. It's just endlessly enjoyable. I think I like it more now than I did when it came out. Certainly over time, it's grown and grown on me. Songs like Videotape closing out the album are just brilliant. Of course, you wouldn't expect any less from the Radioheads, as I call them in our household. But yeah, that's my top 5, guys. So let me know in the comments below what you think. What would your top 5 of that year be? If you're so bold, leave me a top 10, because as you can see, this was a seminal year in music history. But guys, we got top 5s every Friday, album reviews, so much more. Thank you for watching, and as always, Viva La Vinyl. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and be sure to ring the bell for notifications so you can always see great quality content like you're seeing on the screen right now. Thank you so much for supporting Johnny Radio, and I'll see you soon.